Halloween was bittersweet. It was Alicia's favorite holiday, as it meant she could wear any costume she wanted without hearing the complaints from her mother. Got to go out gathering candy, got to watch all the scary shows that flooded Netflix until she was asleep in a pile of goodies. This was the first year in many that Adkin was without his spooky little sidekick. This year, she was in the ground in a cemetery, her body decomposing into the satin upholstery of an overpriced box. Adkin has spent his morning sobbing into his hands in front of his daughter's headstone until he had cried himself out. He had never wanted to be a parent until it had happened. For a long time, he was just infatuated with how small she was, how big her eyes were, how she looked just like him. She never looked like her mother, had never been anything like the old bitch at all. She had taken after him in every way. They had spent so many hours together watching anime, picking out cosplay outfits, going to conventions, and in his workshop as he taught her how he made props. They had so many things left to do together and would never get to do any of it. Adkin wondered if things would have been better if he had never left. Would she still have done what she did if he had stayed in the house? He couldn't stop thinking through scenarios where he had kicked Miranda out of the house and filed for divorce instead of trying to outweight her. In retrospect, he didn't understand what he was thinking. Once he was sufficiently numbed by his cemetery experience, Adkin had driven to the store and bought as much candy as he could fit into a handbasket. If his own daughter wasn't going to enjoy her favorite holiday, Adkin was going to do his best to make sure other children did. The festivities started early for Adkin. He had taken the day off of work and was slowly making his way through a bottle of salted caramel whiskey while watching a Stephen King movie marathon. He had taken the day off work and was slowly making his way through a bottle of salted caramel whiskey while watching a Stephen King movie marathon, when the smaller children started trick-or-treating in the early afternoon. Cujo was playing when he took the last sip from his bottle. The alcohol had warmed his insides enough to allow him to think of his daughter without dissolving into a sobbing puddle again. Watching the rabid dog on the screen reminded him of Alicia's phobia of dogs after a near catastrophe when she was small. They had been at his own father's ranch when a neighbor's huge German shepherd came out of nowhere chasing a rabbit and collided with a tiny toddler Alicia. The accident had shoved her against an old shed, the weight of the dog causing her back to be impaled on a long rusted nail. The nail had pierced her left lung and caused an infection so extreme she had nearly died. Alicia spent a month in the hospital recovering from the accident, and by the time she was released, she was so afraid of dogs she couldn't even watch cartoon dogs anymore. He was deep in his memory when the doorbell rang again. Adkin stood from the couch, a little unbalanced from the whiskey, but he had no trouble making his way to the door. He swung it open without looking at the kid as he reached to the side for the big bowl. He was just turning his eyes to greet the kid when a loud bark issued from the massive, slightly blurry animal jumping on his doorstep. The bowl fell from Adkin's grip, the world seeming to move slowly as he reached for the gun he kept next to the door for protection against break-ins. All he could think of was how afraid of dogs Alicia was, how this one was enormous, how threatening the barking was, how it was jumping so close to him as if trying to attack. He didn't think as he leveled the barrel at the beast and pulled the trigger.